Hi there. So I don't do YouTube videos very often, but I thought the topic I'm going to cover today is actually important enough that I would do one. I own a Mercedes-Benz S580e, which is the plug-in hybrid version of the S-Class. It's a 2023 model. I got it in June of 2023. I've seen a lot of interesting information online, I'll put it that way, around the electrical energy usage and or gasoline usage fuel economy of the S580e. And quite frankly, I think that Mercedes uh, itself has not done the community necessarily the best service in the way they report out the consumption figures for the car. In particular, the European cycle is done over such a short distance that it's almost entirely covered by the battery, which this particular plug-in hybrid has among the highest, if not the last time I looked, it was either the highest or the second highest electric range of any of the plug-in hybrids. So, the European cycle that Mercedes-Benz uses just about as entirely is covered by the battery, and so the engine doesn't run very much. I think it is much more instructive to look at the uh, realistic consumption figures, fuel economy figures of the car over a large distance under normal usage. So, my background is I was a physics major, math minor at Georgia Tech, graduated in 1990, and spent 10 years in the submarine force as a nuclear submarine officer on attack submarines, then a number of years in consulting, and then a number of years as a executive in business. Uh, did almost 20 years at Sizev, uh, much of that as the CEO, and then became the CEO of Athenium a couple of years ago. Um, but I have a continuing interest in things that relate to engineering. So let me show you. Well, first I'll show you the car itself. If I can make this work. So this is the inside of the car, and that's the outside. Of course, you can see my giant GMC for the family in the background. It's a beautiful car. Um, Very attractive. I think I've got lots of little nits about the car. It's not perfect. There are a lot of things that are annoying. Frankly, I think it's over computerized, uh, desperately computerized is what I would say. But overall, the car is fantastic. It drives well. It's extremely quiet. Uh, it's just a lot of superlatives. I would say the biggest limitation to the car is the size of the trunk, and in particular, the uh, floor height in the trunk is raised up because the battery is actually in the trunk. And unfortunately, the clearance in the trunk is about an inch short of being able to take a standard uh, pull bag and put it up, like a on end, or on its side, I should say. So you have to lay it flat, and it really makes it difficult to get any appreciable amount of luggage in the trunk. Um, so that's really the big drawback. They really should have looked at that uh, and probably done a little bit more work on ensuring that the boot, as they would call it in Europe, could fit a standard roller bag in the sideways position so that you can fit more bags in. Because the trunk's depth is not too bad. It's just the height is not good. But anyway, I'm going to show you an Excel spreadsheet that I built which is pretty comprehensive. It's basically a fancy log of the trip computer and some modeling, which include certain engineering constants, um, and then a essentially a model around the electrical usage and fuel usage of the vehicle compared to uh, the speed the vehicle's operating at. So without further ado, let's go take a look at that. All right. So this is a log, and I haven't been particularly systematic about how often I record these, but you can see this. I did the first entry, a couple of months after the vehicle was bought. Uh, Total miles on the vehicle's 25,627. The reason this looks like it restarts is I had to reset the computer in the car, and when I did that, it reset the um, essentially the trip computer, um, and so I had to sort of restart that and make some adjustments in calculation. But the bottom line is, um, and because of that, I lost a little bit of data here. But the bottom line is I've got logged data for 25,412 miles or 413 miles rounded up out of the 25,627 miles in the car. So basically, these items in blue come straight off the trip computer. So you literally can record those right off the screen, either the screen in the car or using the Mercedes-Benz, excuse me, Mercedes-Benz app. Um, Total driving. So the distance travel, electric only. We're going to talk about that in a minute. Driving time, electric only. Fuel economy in miles per gallon, electric uh, economy, miles per kilowatt hour. And then the indicated battery range that shows up if the battery was full at the time that it was logged. And then each one of these is basically a difference calculation to look at the numbers just from the last entry to the current. So a few things about this. This is the stated nameplate capacity of the battery. It's 28.6 kilowatts. The usual capacity of the battery, usable, is 25 kilowatts. I've confirmed this. This is exact. This plus or minus about 0.2 kilowatts is what is charged to the battery when you discharge it all the way, where it indicates 0, and then fully charge it. The reserve, which is that 3.6 kilowatts, is really for the hybrid operation. So when the battery says actually 0, it's really not 0. It's still got a few kilowatt hours in it, and that's used to support the hybrid operation of the vehicle when the battery is indicated discharged. This is a conversion unit that is the number of kilowatt hours contained in 1 unit of gasoline, coming straight off of our reference. So look, I drive a significant amount of distance in electric mode, as you can see. So by distance, 55% of the distance I've driven is electric mode operation. And by time, since typically the electric mode operation is slower, it's actually a higher percentage of time, 73% of the time. I would say that's pretty good. I'm not sure if I'm in the 90th percentile in terms of electric only usage, but I would say I'm pretty high up there. But nevertheless, the fraction of distance, 55%, represents a pretty even split between electric and gas operation. So you can see the average speed for each. And this is pretty much right on the money for what a typical car averages overall, which is typically between 30 and 35 miles per hour. Um, this is an interesting one. This is how many uh, what that says battery full discharge equivalent cycles. So effectively, I've taken the total number of kilowatts hours consumed and divided it by the total capacity of the battery to come up with effectively how many times it's been discharged if it were to be discharged fully. That's a measure of wear on the battery. Um, so let's talk about these in yellow, these cells in yellow and green. You will see that the electric only miles per kilowatt hour, which is a electric economy, indicated from the trip computer is 2.91, whereas the electric only miles per kilowatt hour delivered from the battery range, derived from the battery range, which would be this number, is much lower. A couple reasons for that. This 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 number and this number represents electric only operation. Whereas this number, yes, it's electric only, but it also includes the effect, since it's actually calculated over the life of the vehicle. It includes electric only operation when in hybrid mode, when the engine actually was used to propel the vehicle. And so this is coast down. So what happens is the coast down when the vehicle's in H mode and it's using the engine and you lift off the accelerator, the engine stops. When the engine stops, the vehicle treats that as electric only operation because the engine's not running. What's going on there is the engine the vehicle is then in regenerative mode. So the energy is actually flowing into the battery from the converting kinetic energy from the vehicle braking via regeneration into the battery. And so effectively what you're doing is you're moving energy indirectly from the engine into the battery via regeneration. And so that makes the um, since you're accounting for that in by reducing the amount of electricity used, because it's negative. Remember, when you're regenerating, it's a negative flow. It actually makes it look like you use less electricity than you really are. So you have to be careful with those two calculations. Um, this number right here is the um, equivalent of essentially it's the same thing as the EPA's um, calculation. And you can see it's close to 100 miles per gallon. This is equivalent by energy content. What this does is it essentially takes the number of miles elapsed in electric only operation divided by the number of kilowatt hours used, and then uses the kilowatt hour to gallon conversion factor to convert that into a miles per gallon equivalent. This is by energy content. And that's the way the EPA does it. If you do it by energy cost instead, which is to equate via, you know, um, how much gas you could buy for an equivalent amount of purchased electricity, the mileage is lower because electricity, as a general rule, for the same amount of energy, is a more expensive form of energy. So, you're especially in the Northeast here, you're going to get lower reading on electric mile per gallon equivalent by doing it by energy cost rather than content. But the EPA way is the energy content. Um, gas only miles per gallon. is 20.63. Again, you've got to remember that this number is lower for the exact same reason that this number is higher. So when you're in H mode and you lift off the accelerator, the engine shuts off. It's no longer treated as being in gas mode. So all the normal coast downs where an engine's fuel flow would be stopped are effectively accounted for on the electric side and not accounted for on the gas side. So that actually depresses the apparent gas mileage that's shown via this calculation. So, but these two numbers are the most important one, and really this one right here is the most important one. This is the actual combined mile per gallon equivalent by energy content. And it's 36.62, so that's almost 37 miles per gallon. This is the combined electric consumption in terms of kilowatt hours per 100 kilometers. This is in the European style units. And this is the combined gas consumption. It's 5.08 liters per 100 kilometers. And then finally, the total equivalent consumption is about 6.42. You notice these numbers are significantly different than what is reported by Mercedes in the European cycle. And the reason they're different is because this is over a very large distance, where the amount of time spent running in gasoline mode is roughly half, slightly less than half. By the way, these are very good numbers. I mean, you know, a effective miles per gallon of 37. And these essentially the same numbers expressed as consumption numbers. That's extraordinary for a luxury car that weighs 5,000 pounds or more. So I mean, I'll just give you an example. I also have a old S500 2003 year. That car struggles to break 20 miles per gallon, and so this car, which is heavier, faster, smoother, more advanced in every respect, gets almost double the gas mileage equivalent mileage. It's amazing, actually. So the rest of the spreadsheet is actually playing some gymnastics with the power modeling of the car. I use the cubic power law, include rolling resistance calculations. By the way, as a side product, I compute the coefficient of drag down here, and I get exactly the same number that Mercedes quotes using the published frontal areas and the power usage at the speed at which I calculated. So this chart shows you it actually starts with a hotel load, because the hotel loads are the amount of energy that the car uses just to sit there, right? So it's the air conditioning, lights, all this. And by the way, this number is low in the summer. You know, it's probably 2 or 1 kilowatt in the summertime, or when the car is warmed up, and it can be up to 10 in the wintertime, which is also why the range decreases significantly for electric in the winter, as the hotel loads are so high to heat the interior of the car and condition the battery and so on and so forth. This is actually, and I did this empirically, basically even to touch the accelerator and get the motor moving, it takes about 6 kilowatts. So that's modeled in the motor liftoff is about 6 kilowatts just to start turning. That's the peak power published. Some of these things I had to determine empirically, but bottom line is this generates a set of curves. Motor power, total power, consumption, electric economy, by costs, a whole bunch of things. And then I also did charts. So you can see that the peak gas economy actually occurs around 40, 41 miles, 42 miles per gallon, and is right at 40 miles per gallon. 42 miles per hour and is right at 40 miles per gallon. Car still gets 30 miles per gallon on the gasoline engine at 80 miles per hour and 26 at 90. It's incredible. I mean, part of that's the coefficient of drag is so low. For the electric side, believe it or not, the maximum speed economy electric-wise is achieved at about 50. And that's slightly over 3 kilowatt hours per mile. Or, I mean, miles per, 3 miles per kilowatt hour. If you change the hotel load to something more reasonable for the wintertime, you'll see those curves go down. So if you change this more like 6, let's say, and you go back here, you'll see the curves have shifted downwards. So this is now maxes out at about 2.5. And that is exactly why. And if you let's go to 10, if it's a very cold day, you see this is now down to 2, and you know, at typical city speeds is even below 2. Now you can take this number and multiply it times the kilowatt, the 25, to get the effective range on the battery, and you'll see that it's less than 50 in this area in the wintertime. Whereas if you're in the summertime, that's back at 2, you can see that, you know, probably running on the highway, you're going to be at, you know, 2.6, 2.83, which, you know, means you can get more than 60 miles out of the battery. So it's pretty interesting. This is a similar chart, but it shows really pretty much energy loss for consumption. You'll see that the rolling resistance and air resistance are about equal at 55 miles per hour for this car. Remember, rolling resistance in terms of energy used per mile is constant, right? Because it's a constant force, roughly. And then, you know, the air resistance builds as the cube of the speed, which you can see that's where it crosses over. And then from this point faster, it's air resistance that dominates. And these are the curves. Pretty cool. So this is the long answer to a lot of the misinformation or distortions out there around how the S580 actually does. I would say that these numbers, which are almost 37 miles per gallon equivalent over a very, very long distance traveled, about half electric, half gas, is a incredible number for a luxury car. I mean, when have you ever heard a traditional luxury car getting almost 40 miles per gallon? It's crazy. But it's not, you know, the crazy like 1.5 liters per 100 kilometer number that Mercedes quotes. And while the mile per gallon electric equivalent calculated the EPA way for electric only operation is close to 100, that's not what you really get in the real world, because in the real world, you're going to be using the gas engine quite a bit. You know, if you don't use the plug-in part of the vehicle and you just drive in hybrid mode all the time, you're going to get a number that's probably somewhere in the low to mid 20s in the gasoline mileage. Certainly better than a non-hybrid, but not that much better. So the bottom line is, you know, you want to get the benefits out of the plug-in hybrid, you got to plug it in. Otherwise, you're limiting the benefits of the hybrid operation. One other comment I'll make is you notice that since I'm driving over half the distance on the electric motor, the actual number of hours and miles that are put on the gasoline engine is pretty low, which obviously helps limit the wear. I'm also very careful. I try not to. I try to minimize the number of situations where the gas engine has to do a cold start, especially a cold start where you're putting emergency power on the gasoline engine by pushing past the detent when you're in electric only mode. I've only done that like once or twice in an emergency. And generally I try and I do use the B mode and to control the battery usage to try and make sure that when the gas engine comes on, I'm in a steady state cruise, so that it has a chance to warm up and come up to speed, and then before you actually put load on it. So we'll see how that affects the wear of the gas engine, but I have a feeling it's going to extend the life of the gas engine significantly since it's not running most of the time. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting and backfilled, and hopefully it dispels some of the distortion field around how this car actually does in electric and fuel consumption. Thanks.